The tweezer game. That was a joke at the Bar Smarts convention that I recently attended with some of the top bartenders in the country. And it lovingly refers to the way that some of the top bartenders and mixologists in the country are creating their craft cocktails. And it's slicing and dicing and juicing, and it's just really a really big show. But what they really wanted to drive home was the fact that as a bartender, as a mixologist, the most important thing that you can do is know how things taste. And so we had a tasting, and I learned a lot at the tasting that I didn't know, and I really need to make sure that I continue tasting, expanding and exploring my palate. And so that's what I wanted to do today. I wanted to try an artisanal gin and try and see if that would work in some of the more classic gin cocktails. And I chose the St. George gin because it's a little artisanal brand out of Alameda, California, which is right near San Francisco. And obviously San Francisco is the epicenter of the craft cocktails and the classic cocktail movement with its food forward thinking. So I chose this one. They actually make 3 different kinds of gin at this distillery. I chose the Botanivore because of its citrus notes. And it's just really citrusy, and it would work really well in anything that you would use, say Bombay Sapphire or Tanqueray 10. So I chose this one. They also have a rye gin, and they have a terroir, which is very, very earthy and probably wouldn't translate well into the classic cocktails that I want to work on here today. So, and also the other great thing about this distillery is that the now CEO, he got his job just walking in there with a bottle of homemade bourbon as a resume. So, you know, that says a lot about his palate. So we're gonna go ahead, and the first classic cocktail that I wanna do is a Negroni. And these are making a huge comeback. And the Negroni is classically equal parts of gin, Campari, and sweet vermouth. So in my journey of trying to work with some different new tastes, I did some research, and I came across something that's sort of newish. This is from about 2010. A bartender named Scott Baird walked into the tasting in New Orleans, and he brought this little bottle with him, and I can assure you that a lot of the bartenders left with the same bottle. What he did is he introduced this type of bitters as a substitute for the Campari, and he described it as fresh, lively, and bitter as hell. So we're going to do equal parts: 1 ounce of gin, 1 ounce of the Classico bitters. It smells really fresh and lively. And I'm going to go ahead with the Antica sweet vermouth. And we're going to give that a stir just to mix the flavors together. A little more ice. And we're going to add an orange garnish. And there you have it, the classic Negroni. And speaking of bitters, again, another really nice twist to a classic, which is the martini. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add some orange bitters to the 50-50 martini. And that is basically 50% dry vermouth and 50% gin. And then you're just going to add 2 dashes of this orange bitters. Now I chose this bitters. This is a Miracle Mile orange bitters. And Louis Anderman is a bartender who has his own little bitters distillery, and he's coming up with some really great flavors. He's got gingerbread, he's got sour cherry, he's got chili chocolate, and the bartenders around town are just really coming up with some. He actually does some guest bartending gigs, and he creates these cocktails, and they are having so much fun with it. So again, I'm going to do another classic cocktail, the 50-50, which is equal parts. And we'll start with the gin. Gin, dry vermouth. Now I know you're saying, but that's so much vermouth. But you know what? This is a thing. This is a thing because Dave Wondridge said so. And as a matter of fact, Dave Wondridge was my judge for my practical exam at the Bar Smarts convention, which, you know, hey, no pressure, right? Take a chilled glass. Now we're going to strain this into our martini glass. And for this, we're going to go ahead and use an orange twist. just let it spray over the top of the cocktail. And that's your 50-50 gin martini. I like to add a fresh element, and so for this one I'm going to use a raspberries, and so it's going to be a raspberry basil Tom Collins. And that always, I mean, you just can't go wrong with the fresh ingredients. Take a couple little, some raspberries and some basil leaf, fresh basil leaf, a little bit, and we're going to muddle that just a little bit in the glass. And then we're going to go ahead and add our fresh lemon juice, 3/4 of an ounce of fresh lemon juice. 3/4 of an ounce of the simple syrup, because we're going to do 3/4, 3/4, and then 1 1/2. It's the famous Andy Seymour 3/4, 3/4, 1 1/2 recipe of gin. And then we're going to go ahead and add some. I'm going to shake it up. And we're going to shake that up. Make sure you get all that flavor from the raspberries and the basil. Really nice. And I'm going to go ahead and strain that into a glass. And top it off with a little bit of soda water. Give it that nice little bit of a fizz. Give it a quick stir. And an orange slice of raspberry flag. And there you have it, the raspberry basil Tom Collins. You've got the Negroni with the classic Negroni with the twist of the Grand Classico bitters. You've got your 50-50 with a couple dashes of the orange bitters, and then the Tom Collins with the fresh twist of the raspberry basil. And you've got 3 classic gin cocktails.